Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. My name is Dr. Lesley Phillips, and I am your host. And joining me today in the studio, we have, as usual, Corey. Hello, Corey.
Hello, Dr. Lesley.
Hello.
I sure wish you would have given me some warning that we were starting.
Oh, couldn't you hear in your headset?
Yes, when it went, welcome.
And
I had to press the record button really quickly.
Uh-oh. Well, anyway, we're live on air right now.
I know.
On 101.7 FM on CIVL. And listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley.
And listeners, when you look at our podcast next Tuesday of this show, you won't be listening to it. You'll actually be looking at it because we're recording Dr. Lesley on these shows from now on. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, we're recording video. And we're hoping to have a chat room for the listeners to join in as well. So, if you're tuning in for the first time, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth. And Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a different show topic, and tonight's no exception. And then we open the phone lines for you, the listeners, to join in the conversation. And you can phone us up and bring up some points about the show topic that we've been discussing, or you can phone up and ask questions about your life where you would like an intuitive insight. So if you've got some issues going on, anything from your career to your finances to your health, you can phone us up and ask for a spiritual perspective. And also, if you want to know about your own spiritual experiences, your intuition, your past lives, anything like that, this is the show to call. And so I'll read you the number. It's 604-504-7441, extension 4142. And you can email info at Dr. Lesley Phillips as well. And once again, you can call 604-504-7441, extension 4142. Now,
next week we're going to give you the code for the Zoom as well, so you can actually call in by Zoom.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Chat room.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Dr. Lesley, I have one question before we start.
Sure.
What's that hanging from your mic?
This is Johnny K's duck that he leaves on the microphone every week, and I don't know how to get it off. And he uses it. He uses to clean his hands with it. I don't know. All right. So anyway, I've had some listeners writing to me of late, suggesting some show topics. And we're going to that's what we're going to do today. And I'll read out two of the listeners who've written in. So we have Meredith from Denver, Colorado. And she said, I'm writing to let you know I really enjoy the show. And I listen to it on the podcast and always appreciate the food for thought. She's wondering if we would consider doing a show about trauma, recovery, and living beyond trauma, because she says it seems like a topic that might touch a lot of your listeners. And Laurie also wrote in and said, have you covered anything about the current state of affairs between North Korea and the US and the rest of the world? Because for some time I've not been able to see or plan my future long before this conflict, and now all I see is emptiness. So she's kind of feeling like her future is uncertain, and it's causing her some distress. So I thought that we could do a show around that topic because, I mean, really, if you think about what's been going on in the last month or even through the summer, there's been a lot of things that might frighten people that have been going on in the world. Whether in the summer it's all of those devastating forest fires, both in California and across Canada and other parts of the world. We've had hurricanes and people being killed. We even had a hurricane kill people in Ireland, would you believe it? As well as all the hurricanes going on in the Caribbean and the southeast of the United States. And we had the massive earthquake in Mexico. And then the Las Vegas shootings that happened, I believe, earlier this month, where it was the biggest mass shooting ever in the United States. And on top of that, we've got all the global unrest and political disturbances, whether it's Trump, whether it's North Korea, whether it's what's going on in Spain and Catalonia at the moment. And we've got this big furore about sexual harassment that was started off by Harvey Weinstein losing his job. So there's just enormous disturbance and upheaval. So in today's show, I want to ask the following questions. How can you cope with the disturbance? Why are we experiencing such disturbance in our world? And what is a spiritual perspective on all of this? So let's start by talking about the sexual harassment. And of course, if you don't know the story, Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein was fired for abusing his power as a movie executive for sexually abusing women. And apparently he'd been doing it for many years, and there'd been many out-of-court settlements for large sums of money. Now, of course, this is just the latest. It's not new. There's always some kind of sexual scandal, whether it's Donald Trump grabbing them by the P blank, 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 or, there's always some kind of sexual scandal going on. And what many of them have in common is, and I'm not saying it's always men that are abusers, but what many of them have in common is a powerful man who's allegedly taking advantage of women who say that they were afraid to go up against such power for the sake of their careers. And, when that first came out, I said to myself, you know what? It really is the tip of the iceberg. It's not just the movie industry. It's in all industries. And most women probably have a story to tell. And now we've seen in the last week or so that we've got this hashtag #MeToo, and everybody is coming out and standing up and talking about it and sharing their experiences of it and blowing the lid off something that has had, been covered up and suppressed for very long. So Corey, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, most people probably don't know. I don't know if I mentioned on air before, but I do extra work in the film and television industry. And I'm part of the union. And the union has called a special meeting, especially for the women. And not only for women, but for the whole membership, but especially for women to come in and discuss this topic and to bring any issues forth and bring them into the light with regards to this in our industry in Vancouver here, so that we can actually look at this more seriously. And the men have been asked as well, but it's I think all things are good and bad if you want to have both sides of that duality. I mean, it was terrible that Weinstein did what he did, but in it coming out now in this manner, I think a lot of uncovering will happen.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And we often talk on the show about the vibration on the planet going up, and it's like turning a light brighter and brighter and brighter. And that's why these things that have been happening for centuries, all of a sudden, people are not accepting them anymore. All of a sudden, they're coming up, the light's being shined on them, and we're saying, no, this has to stop. Well, so what would make a human being allow their sexual drive to overcome them to such a degree that they could lose all perspective about a fellow human being, objectifying them and being unaware of their feelings and treating them in the way that Harvey Weinstein allegedly has done to these women and other abusers. And so I just, this show is about taking a spiritual perspective. And so that's what I wanted to do with this is, and here are some observations. So we say on this show, don't we, a lot of the time, you are not your body. You are spirit. You are not your physical body. But many humans are caught up in the perspective only of the physical body, in their animal nature, in their survival instinct, in their sex drive, in their emotions, and in their ego. Probably 96 or 97% of the humans on the planet, that's kind of where they are. And also sex in our society is commoditized. You just have to look at advertising. You just have to go on the internet. You can't avoid, really. And we're so programmed to see sex as a form of power as well. And in a way, when you think about a wealthy man who has everything he needs, sex is the only outlet for their animal nature, for their survival nature, for their sexual instinct. And we've really, in our society, forgotten the spiritual purpose of sex, which is species survival. And if we were spiritually awake as a species, then we might see it differently. We would respect others and not use power to intimidate and control them. And then, let's move on and talk about the mass shootings as well, because, people are getting impassioned about the sexual abuse, but I think people are getting frightened about, people are angry about the sexual abuse. And that's fantastic because anger is one level up from fear. It means that there's energy and motion, that things are moving, that things are changing. Whereas some of the stuff that's going on, people really are in a state of fear about it still. And the mass shootings would be an example of that. And also all of those natural disasters that have been happening. And of course, I think everybody's heard about the mass shooting that happened in the United States. Is this chap called Stephen Paddock, who nobody would have guessed this about, but he killed 59 people and injured 527, at least the last time I looked at the stats. And he appeared normal. He didn't have a criminal record, and yet he had a huge stockpile of lethal weapons, and he just opened fire on this country music festival from his Las Vegas hotel room. And again, in our world, this kind of isn't new. It's the worst one, but in the US, they have a couple of these a month at least. And so, Corey?
So, we were talking about the US, but are you aware that Canada has had mass shootings as well?
Yeah.
Do you know what the largest one was?
No.
72 people.
That were killed?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. And don't quote me on this one, but I think it was 1974. We were sitting around, we were talking about this the other day at one of the movie sets, and one of the gentlemen pulled his cell phone and did some Googling. We were saying, well, in Canada, it doesn't happen. And sure enough, there were like 72, 51, 14. So it does happen. And the latest one was, I think, in 1989.
Wow.
And it was something like 13, 14 people. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was a shock because we think we're segregated from that here up in Canada, right, on this side of the border.
Or at least that it happens on a smaller scale.
So I would presume, you're going to tell us, but I would presume it's got something to do, like Weinstein's got something to do with not having his sacral chakra in alignment or blocked. And
well, like I just said, it's because the focus is solely on the physical body. There isn't a spiritual perspective at all. Spirit isn't in charge. It's the animal nature that rules,
it's the same thing with shootings then?
Well, let's ask the question, why would an ordinary human being do this? Why? And why are there so many, and also why so many people are disturbed to the extent that they will go out and kill people like this and destroy the lives of many others? And there are lots of potential answers, but I guess, again, on this show, we're wanting to give a spiritual perspective. And I think we've created a culture. We have a culture where people don't take responsibility for themselves. And when I say don't take responsibility for themselves, I kind of am saying something similar to the Harvey Weinstein thing, in that you are spirit, you've created a physical body. What goes on in that physical body is your responsibility. And you create your reality through it. And the perpetrators of these killings, spirit isn't taking charge of the body. Whether it's because they've been programmed by a set of extremist beliefs, like some of the terrorists perhaps, someone else has influenced them to such an extent that they're not thinking for themselves, or they've been invaded by another being, whether because they've been taking recreational drugs, alcohol, or pharmaceutical medicines, because a lot of medications that they take for mental disturbances, I think I've said this before on the show, they will shut you down. They will kick spirit out of the body sometimes, and so that leaves it vulnerable to other things being channeled through. And then the other thing is that the body's disturbance is suppressed until it can't be contained anymore, and then it comes bursting out. So, I mean, yes, we can say, well, this person's been abused, or it's post-traumatic stress disorder, and it may well be, and we can say that we've failed to give support to that person as a society. But from a spiritual perspective, they are always ultimately responsible for their own reality and what they're doing in that body. Bit of a hardline perspective, I suppose, but that is my belief. It's your body, it's your responsibility. Take responsibility for your body. And most people are not in their bodies. We talk on this show all the time about grounding. Why? Grounding brings you, the spiritual consciousness, into your body. Step number one of you taking charge of your reality, of you being, think of the body and its animal nature like a wild stallion that needs to be tamed, and the one that tames it is you, the spirit. You're the rider on that wild stallion. Most people are not riding their horse. So
well, the other thing too, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that this could occur. I mean, even to the point of, as we've talked many times, about people hearing voices and getting angry about it, or the voices telling them something. And I'm not saying that a voice will tell you to kill anybody, but
it might.
But it also might be a misinterpretation of what the voices are saying to you. That the world is a sad place and that people are unhappy, and people misread these things, right?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, let's cover the other a couple of things that we were going to talk about, which is the natural disasters and the political disturbances. So, well, actually, it's almost time for us to go to break. Maybe we should go to break and talk about it when we come back.
Well, let's talk about it straightforward. Let's go right through to the break after.
All right.
You're on a roll.
Sure. So
you're not going to bring Trump up, though, are you?
Not again. I've already mentioned him, so I guess that's the airtime he's going to get today. So we've had all of these natural disasters happening, and we've had millions of people displaced and losing their homes and their livelihood. And, such experiences are humbling, aren't they? And they bring out compassion. And in a way, they're great equalizers in terms of, it doesn't, if you were rich or you were poor before your town was devastated, a wealthy man without food, shelter and water or aid is no different from a poor man in the same situation. a hospital cleaner whose house is being looted stands next to a doctor whose house has been burnt to the ground. I think it's a great equalizer. And like you were saying, some of these things you say that there are positive things to come out of it. That people open up their hearts to love and assist and help each other. And so I've lost my train of thought, Corey. Give me a second.
It also it brings out it can bring out the best. It can bring out. We live in a world of duality, whether it's spiritual duality or physical duality. I mean, like the gentleman we had on last week who talked about his house being in Katrina, and his house went down to the ground. There were people that were angry. There were people that were looting. There were people that had a spiritual awakening from it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's kind of what I wanted to say. That these events are of these mass consciousness events. They're mass creations on a spiritual level. We're all agreeing to go through these things together, and it's an opportunity for us to grow and expand in compassion and understanding and other ways. And, the same thing, if we look at these political disturbances and the other global unrest, whether it's Brexit or whether it's Korea, whether it's the US wanting to build a wall, or whether it's, the Catalans wanting to separate from the rest of Spain, there's a lot of fear in our current political system, a lot of control and a lot of self-interest. And people are starting to show their dissatisfaction. So what it helps us to do is know what we want and know what we don't want, and more stand up for saying what we want. People want a better life, and an awakened humanity would be different. We wouldn't, perhaps we wouldn't be so divided. Perhaps we would unite and serve each other instead of serve self-interest, but that's not who we are now. And so again, back to responsibility, that we need to accept our world as it is, and each one of us to accept our responsibility for our part and be the change that we seek. And I think that's some of what we're seeing, is that people are standing up to are becoming the change that they want to seek. So why are we experiencing these disturbances? It as we've said before, it is a time of great change on our planet, and the planetary body herself is having changes in its energy field and responding to those changes in its energy field, as well as the disturbances that are being caused by the human inhabitants. Our vibration's been increasing, and like I said at the beginning of the show, it's like a light that's starting to shine in some very dark places, causing people to pay attention and stand up. There's a bigger gap between the light and the dark now. Everything is more polarized, and people aren't coping well. And clearly some are going quite mad. Everything's more polarized, so you've got more extremism, more terrible things, and more people not coping. But you've also got the opposite polarity of that, the light of consciousness, the inspiration for change, and so on. And then the final question that we wanted to ask about was, how can you deal with these disturbances? Because that's where our listeners came to us, was, I feel disturbed. How can I cope? How can I deal with these things that are going on? And so I've got a few suggestions, and I'm sure Corey might do too. But don't feed the thought form. And this might sound trite, but don't focus on love, not hate. Don't feed the thought form. And this is counterintuitive to most people. We like to judge. He's wrong, she's right, I'm right. We like to criticize, we like to worry, we get caught up in hatred and fear. But if you do that, then you're feeding the exact vibration that you're complaining about. you're putting out more of that same vibration. And so don't feed the thought form. Do the opposites. Send love. Now, we always advocate meditation. So how can you deal with the disturbances that are coming up in your reality or that you're seeing going on in the rest of the world that are frightening you? Meditate to clear the disturbance from your own space. Take responsibility for your own space. And I know when you're traumatized, you might say, well, easier said than done. But using the techniques that we talk about on this show is a great way to start. Practically every show we're saying, go and find the podcast where we taught you how to ground, because that will help you. You need to find a way to be above the body's disturbance, above the the fear and hate and judgment, or the sex drive that can't be controlled in the case of somebody like Harvey Weinstein. They come from your body reality, not you. So if you learn to ground and center, then it puts you in charge and helps you to cope. Corey?
Oh yes, definitely. I took a drive today into the city, and the traffic was astounding today. It was really busy. But something I'm really starting to notice more and more is that people, it's not just a rush anymore. It's a panic rush. And I think if we start doing what Eckhart Tolle says and what you said so many times is, let's get into the present. If we get into the present, then much of what we fear and much of what is happening in the world can't take that control, because we're here, we're now, we're right, we're breathing, we're alive. And same with the traffic. I was saying, if everybody just said, okay, I'm here right now, nobody would be in a rush to get anywhere, and everybody would get there faster.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And again, we've said this before, but what if you're worried about the future, if you're worried about where you're going and what's going to happen in the future, or what disaster is going to befall you in the future, all of these, is it the coming of the apocalypse? You're projecting yourself into the future. Well, you can go into the future, you, the consciousness, but your body can't. So all it does to the body is make it really, really frightened. So be in present time.
You can, there's nothing wrong. We were at the show this weekend, and people were selling, what they call, Lesley, the bags? The red bags with the...
Oh, emergency preparedness kits.
Yeah. Emergency preparedness kits. And there's nothing wrong with being prepared for something that may come, an eventuality. That's fine. But sitting and waiting for it to happen is so different. Live your life. Be happy. Be in love. Don't be in fear.
Don't feed the beast. And send healing. Send healing to people who are in areas that are impacted in the news that you hear. Send love, send healing, send positive intentions. Deal with your own reactions, meditate, and if you're able to, then send healing. Visualize and intend the shift that you need to see. Now, with that, I think we will go to a break. And listeners, after the break, the phone lines will be open if you want to call in and talk about your experiences of late with some of these things that are going on in the world. Because even in BC, where we are, we've had some forest fires and stuff. Or just phone up and get a spiritual insight on one of your life questions. And the phone number in the studio is 604-504-7441, extension 4142. Once again, that's 604-504-7441, extension 4142. Hello everybody, welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. My name is Dr. Lesley Phillips and I am your host. And tonight on Unlocking Your Truth, we've been talking about how to cope with all the disturbances that are going on in the world today. whether it is your own experiences of being sexually harassed or abused, whether it is the disturbances that are going on around the planet in terms of hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis and all of that, or whether it's just all the political upheavals and the spate of nationalism going on around the planet and racial hatred or whatever it is. How do you cope? How do you deal with it? And of course, we would advocate meditation and personal responsibility as well. Anyway, you're welcome to call and join in the conversation. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you have another way of coping that you'd like to share with everybody. So if that's the case, you can call on 604-504-7441, extension 4142. 604-504-7441, extension 4142. Or you can call and do like we usually do every week. Listeners, you can call and ask about anything. As you know, I am a professional intuitive, and I just love helping people with any questions that they have about their lives. Whether you want an insight about your career or your health or your life purpose or your past lives or your spirit guides or anything you like there. I don't think there's any question that well, maybe there is, I don't know. I don't think there's many questions that we wouldn't answer. Corey, you've got the listeners' questions over there. Which ones shall we address today?
Okay. And the first question I have on the table is from Jane. And again, we use fictitious names. So Jane, listen to your question and you'll recognize it. Okay, and she says, I have been studying Reiki and I'm starting a journey in homeopathy as well. Can you give me some feedback as to if this is the right path for me?
Okay. And she's given us a couple of suggestions that help people cope with stress. Homeopathy and energy healing. All right, Jane, let's take a look. So I'm just taking a moment, listeners, to tune into this lady's energy. And what I want to say, Jane, is that to me, it looks like healing is definitely the right path. I'm seeing that you are a healer, and at the moment what I'm seeing is that it's like you're downloading a lot of information spiritually into your consciousness about healing, and the courses that you're taking in Reiki and homeopathy are helping to trigger and stimulate your knowing, your inner knowing, and your own higher wisdom about healing. And that in going through these courses and these classes and practicing what you're doing, you're activating your healing energy and you're gaining some experience in this physical body of how to do this. So I feel like it's the right path in that context, in that it's stimulating you to activate your purpose as a healer and your abilities as a healer. I believe you could have chosen any number of different ways to do that. So I wouldn't get perfected on the idea of Reiki per se or homeopathy per se, but I would just validate that you're a healer and that you're in alignment with your soul path to be a healer. And I feel that you have lots of growth planned for yourself in that realm of being a healer. And it just feels like you're someone who is passionate about that and actually, in a way, doesn't want to stop learning and expanding and building on the foundation that she already has. So I feel like it's a continuing journey and a continuing expansion for you on a healing path. So I guess the short answer is I would just, yes, validate that looks in alignment to me.
Yeah, it sounds right,
Yeah.
Dr. Lesley.
Yeah.
Of course.
Who's next?
And the next one's from Mia. Mia says, I'm a 57-year-old married woman, married 23 years, and we have a 22-year-old incredible daughter. At this time of inquiry, my husband and I are working on improving our intimate relationship. One of the issues is my own fear of unwanted memories that sometimes comes up. There are other issues as well, but I'm particularly looking for answers that would help me get clarity and somehow relieve the fear and anxiety surrounding the trauma I re-experience and remember.
Okay. Well, I'll take a look. Now, I know the lady that asked this question. I think she sent it in a little while ago. She's someone who's actually taking my course at the moment, I think. And so let's take a look. So I feel like her energy's moved on a bit since she asked that question. So we'll look at it in present time. Because what I'm seeing is in present time, she's coping really, really well with all of this, and she's got some she's got some great tools and techniques that are helping her. So she knows how to ground, and she knows how to center, and she knows how to do a bunch of other things. She specifically asked about fear. You know, it's funny. The answer is really what we've been talking about today, and I've watched this lady going through this process of what we've been saying. Take responsibility for yourself. Take responsibility for your life. Take charge of your own energy, because you can change anything. If you have abuse in your past and you have trauma stored in your body, that doesn't mean you have to have that forever. You can release the trauma. You can release the fear. You can step into a happier life. And, you know, the way to do that is, a great way to do that is meditation. And so that would be my answer to that, really, Corey. And I'm going to go to a quick break just because we need to do a second break. And listeners will be answering more of your questions after the break. You can call 604-504-7441, extension 4142, if you want to talk to us live on air. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuned in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley on CIVL on 101.7 FM. And the number for you to call and ask your questions and get an intuitive insight is 604-504-7441, extension 4142, or you can email us at info@drlesleyphillips.com as well if you're a bit shy and you don't want us to you don't want your voice to be identified on air.
Maybe that's what I should do, just call in my questions here, because I'm so shy.
Do you have a question, Corey?
Yes, I do. Why am I so shy, Dr. Lesley? I have a question from Maria. And Maria says, I feel very connected to spirit when creating art. How or what would spirit like me to do to connect with them more deeply so I can continue to channel creative energy?
Okay. Read it out again, please.
I feel very connected to spirit when creating art. How or what would spirit like me to do to connect with them more deeply so I can continue to channel creative energy? She's just looking for other ways or better ways maybe to connect. She thinks that spirit will tell her the best way to connect.
Yeah, no, I got it. And I got you to read it out twice just because before I go into trance and look at that question, I just want to sort of teach a general principle, perhaps, which is to say, you know, what would spirit like me to do? And what does that mean? What would spirit like me to do? So you are spirit. And so one could say, what's the guidance from my higher self or from God? But we certainly don't want to give our power away to something outside of ourselves. And so if you're working with spirit, as in spirit guides, other entities apart from yourself or God, you don't want to give your seniority away to those entities, even if they are very high vibration beings. You want to always be senior in your own space. But I mean, I think that's just semantics. I think this lady was just saying, I really love channeling my, spirit through art, and how can I continue to be creative, and how can I get more connected and have that creative flow happening. So we'll take a look at that. Well, Anna, I'm seeing that you are very creative, and I'm also seeing that you're very visual, and whether you call it this or not, it looks like you do use your clairvoyance and your abstract intuition. So you use your sixth chakra a lot in the sort of visionary aspect of what you're envisioning you're going to create with your art, and to get the idea or the picture in your mind of what you're going to create. And I'm seeing that sometimes it looks very busy. It looks very busy, like there's a lot going on in that framework of the if we can call it a screen, that mental screen that you're looking at. And so it almost looks like many ideas come very quickly. And so what I feel is that a discipline, a meditation discipline, actually, because I'm seeing, sometimes when we want to be sort of creative and visionary, it sort of people think it's helpful to be ungrounded, and because then you're almost going into a kaleidoscope dreamscape thing. But I'm seeing that if you get more grounded, you can be more focused. And I'm also seeing it's like you like to open up to the universe and just have the ideas coming. But I'm seeing if you get more focused in your crown chakra, if you get more focused in your sixth chakra by centering in the center of your head, then what I'm seeing that comes through is a much more focused and clearly defined communication or message. So that is, so it's the different, it looks like there is a purpose to your art, that there is, and that there is, the purpose in your art is vibrational, is bringing the light of spirit through into the world of form. And what I'm getting is that there's some scatteredness about the energy at the moment that could become much more focused, and that in being more focused, you would be more pleased with the quality of the art, and you would feel more on purpose with the art that you were doing, because it would feel like everything was clearer and more acute. I hope that that's making sense. So I would just say meditation, and in my course Unlock Your Intuition, we teach these fabulous techniques, grounding and centering and some other things. And I feel that those kinds of things would help. So the question was, how can I continue to channel creative art? I'm seeing, the other thing that I was noticing, and I feel this is very common with most artists, is that the best art is when you're in the present moment and grounded and connecting with, and connecting with your body. And often art can do that. It draws you into the present. But I'm seeing that just sometimes you're drifting off a little bit. I hope that helps. I think we've got time for a quick one, Corey, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Is there such a thing as a quick one? Or here's a question from Cassie. And Cassie says, I have been having vivid dreams dreams recently and they feel more like messages. Can you tell me if this is correct? I receive messages already clairaudiently, and I am wondering if this is my spiritual gifts getting stronger.
All right, let's take a look. So, vivid dreams. She was wondering if they're messages or she felt like they are messages. I missed that bit.
She's actually wondering if they are messages when dreaming, if they're getting stronger.
I would say yes and no. That sometimes that the dreams are a communication from another aspect of yourself to the waking consciousness version of you. And it looks like, I would say yes. It looks like the fact that they're getting clearer and you're remembering them more. It does look like it's because you're meant to remember them and because they're relevant to your life. And it looks like there is a particular project that you've been working on in your dreams, and that you've been working on the progression of. We're hearing all your papers there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted out.
No. All right. So let me just take a look now. It looks like there's a very specific project that you're working on, and it looks like something like in your spiritual development and the development of your intuitive gifts, that there's been a kind of a boundary or a limit that you have not gone beyond. And it looks like it's fear of the unknown, and that you've been working on stretching your limit and going a bit further and going a bit further, and in the experiencing of doing that, letting go of your fear. So it looks like you're working on letting go of your fear and of your own spiritual experiences, and bringing that comfort level that's developed in the out-of-body experience into the physical body. So the short answer is yes. Now, we are at the end of our show. And we are going to be back next week on Unlocking Your Truth, as always, at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on 101.7 FM. And you can catch us on the podcast on drlesleyphillips.com as well. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.